Friends, I pride myself in trying to be one of the nicest guys on the internet, especially about guitar stuff. And I'm not an absolute expert at anything. I'm not one of the great players or anything, but I want to say something today. To people, from time to time, I see these posts, and I feel like somebody needs to, in a very kind, nice way, correct some folks who buy a guitar and send it back because it won't stay in tune. Now, let me just say this. There are, in my mind, about 7 reasons why a guitar won't stay in tune. And at least 5 of them, probably more like 6 of them, are easily fixed. Just so super easily fixed. And your guitar will stay in super tune. There's no reason to send your guitar back. I will say this, I have super benefited from people who believe that their guitar won't stay in tune. So I almost hate to make this video because I've got some great guitars behind me. I recently got a Godin guitar, and I'm at Guitar Center, and I see it hanging on the wall. Here's a guitar, and I buy it for $200, $300 less than what the guitar's worth. And I say, well, wonder why they didn't like it. And the person's the Guitar Center person who's supposedly supposed to know guitars says, well, the owner said it wouldn't stay in tune. And as soon as I hear that, I just laugh. I say, oh, well, okay. Wow, okay. I'll take it for $200 or $300 less than what the guitar's worth. So I recently saw on Facebook somebody saying that they showed this picture of a beautiful Groat guitar, and this is one of my Groats. This one is the one with P90s in it. It's a very cheap guitar. Has probably some of the cheapest tuners you can get on it. But it stays in tune. I just pulled it off the rack. I haven't played it in a couple weeks. It was almost in perfect tune. I just marginally, barely tuned it. So what are those 7 things? I'm not going to go in any particular order, but I'll tell you the things that I typically find when I get one of these golden gems. I've got my Ibanez AS73 at a Guitar Center. Again, $150, $200 less than what I should have paid for it because it wouldn't stay in tune. So I hate to give this up, but I'm going to go ahead and give it up anyway. So one of the first things that'll happen is if your guitar, you tune it and you play it hard, you bend the strings and whatever else, and it seems to be going out of tune, the first thing you could check, and a lot of times, I'd say 75% of the time, all you might need to do is tighten these little screws on the ends here and make your tuners grip just a little bit more. Usually it's because the screw here is loose. So that's thing number one, is those screws just might need to be tightened a little bit. It might make it just a little stiffer when you turn. But what can happen if that screw is loose enough, then as you're pulling strings, bending strings, whatever else, they'll actually rotate back. Because these things have to be just tight enough to make these tuners grip. Doesn't matter if they're super expensive tuners you paid $300 for, or if they're like $30 tuners like what's put on most of these Chinese type guitars. So they don't have to be locking tuners. I like to put locking tuners on, which brings me to the second reason that they can go out of tune is maybe whoever strung the guitar didn't wrap it just right, or you've strung it yourself and you haven't wrapped it. If these strings aren't wrapped just right, they can actually shift a little bit as you're tuning, right? They can actually start to, the winds. Now this one's been wound, usually when they come from the factory, they come set up really well. And so this one is whoever in China strung this guitar, locked every string in. So, you know, I'm fairly confident this guitar will never go out of tune because of that, right? Because of the string not being locked down the right way. So that's important. Which brings me to number 3, since we're following the string path, is this nut. So your nut might be sticking a little bit. You might be, if you ever hear your strings pop just a little bit as you're tuning one thing, and you hear a little bit of a click or pop or whatever else, you probably either might need to have that nut widen just a little bit, or you might need to use some sort of lubricant. Now I don't sell this stuff. I do like it. I very much believe in it. It's String Tone from a company called Sound Synergies, and I like this stuff. There's also another one I have called String Sauce, Nut Sauce, I think it's called. Now you can also take a pencil. Yeah, you can take graphite. Graphite's great. You can take a pencil and you can kind of rub it on the inside there, and that will provide lubricant. A lot of times, you might not be staying in tune because it needs a little bit of lubricant right here. The other thing is sometimes you'll be in tune and you'll play each string and they're in tune, and then you'll play a chord and the chord will steam out. It might be, so number 4, it might be that your nut is not cut just the right way. That maybe your nut is the little slots are a little bit high. Now that's one you probably can't fix yourself unless you have the specialized tools to do it. So that's the first one of the 7 that I'm going to talk about that might require some professional help. Usually a luthier, any place you take it to, they can go and they can make sure that your string slots are cut to the right depth. A lot of times they're not cut enough, and when you press down, you're stretching the string a little bit. The other thing is intonation. You might think you're in tune when you play, and then you play down the neck. So maybe you haven't adjusted this part back here, these little screws back here, and little things of what's called your bridge have to be spaced just perfectly so that when you play an E string open here, and you go on the 12th fret, it still makes an E, right? If it makes slightly off E, then that's going to make it sound like you're out of tune as you go up the neck. Same with the B here. You want to know that those strings are, that's what's called intonation, making sure that when you play your string open, you got an E, and when you play it on the 12th fret, you have an E. And that might be slightly off right there. So I may not have the intonation set perfectly on this guitar, but I got it set close enough so that when I play, for instance, a D chord up here, so then the 5th thing that it possibly could be, is that your strings do need to be stretched out a little bit. And if it's a brand new set of strings, if the guitar is shipped from overseas a long way, of course it's going to be out of tune when it comes out. Almost, I can't, what really blows my mind is when I do see people say, I'm sending the guitar back because it wasn't in tune at all. It's not going to come in tune. There's no way. I mean, every day, your guitar, your neck, the wood, like right now I'm out here in a sunroom and it's hot. If I go in the house where it's 10 degrees cooler, or if I go to outside and I get in the sunlight, the tune is going to be changing all the time because the wood expands, the strings themselves expand a little bit. And so you're going to get variations in tune. You got to keep adjusting and fixing that. So it can be just the atmosphere that you're in. I mean, it can be just minute changes as the heat or elements cause your neck to expand or contract a little bit. But generally, that's why you have a tuner on your pedal board or something, so you just click on it and double check and do microfine adjustments. But again, the fact that your strings are on here and they're new, and the fact, especially if you bend your strings a lot, if you're doing little double stops, and eventually that string's going to go out of tune a little bit. These are all things that guitar players are going to do that's going to make your string go out of tune just slightly. The other thing it always could be, it truly could be, is that you really do have a bad neck or something. Very often that is not the case at all. Most of the time it is not. You'll be able to intonate it whether you've got a little bit of curve on the neck or whether your neck's totally flat. The only thing you can't, of course, handle is if your frets are fretting out, you're getting fret buzz and stuff. Generally, that's just a neck adjustment type thing. But possibly it could be that. The only other thing that it can be, the number 7 thing, is if your guitar is just so cheap that the frets are not spaced properly. And I have never in my life, maybe I have once, there might have been an old guitar that I remember playing a long time ago, maybe it's a handmade one, where the frets didn't seem to be spaced just right, and you might play an A note here, and it not sound the same as an A note here, or whatever, just because of the fret spacing. That's generally the last thing that it could possibly be. So again, I'm gonna run through it real quickly. Number 1, it can be these little nuts right here, or these little screws right here, the tightness of them. It can be whether your strings are wrapped right. It can be whether you're grabbing a little bit here. It could be your intonation. It could be the fact that your strings are new or that your strings are not stretched out properly, because they will undergo a little bit of stretch. It will be the fact that the guitar has gone through different kinds of environmental changes, like say a 5-degree change or humidity, whether it's heat or it's humidity, going from one room to the next can, over the course of 5 minutes, make your guitar sound like it's totally out of tune. Intonation does play a key as you move up down the neck. You got to know that you're going to get the same tones from here all the way up the neck. And the way to do that is, of course, check your intonation at the 12th fret. There's plenty of videos that show you how to do that. The only other thing that I'm aware of that can cause a problem would be the cut of the nut. And yeah, sometimes it can be binding back here. Very seldom, though, is it binding back here at the bridge. So I didn't even bring that up. It could be. So, you know, you could even take the stuff like here, this, or your other graphite or any other lubricant, and you could lubricate these right here. But usually there's such a short amount of space between the bridge and whatever's holding it. And if you've got a Telecaster, then you got a little thing that goes straight through and comes out and comes through and goes across your bridge. It's usually such a short amount of space that that's usually not where your tuning issues are going to be. All of them are easily fixed, like I say, except for the nut, except for the fact that there might be misplaced frets or something like that, or you need a really big-time neck adjustment. Like I say, this guitar, less than 200 bucks, one of my favorite guitars now, stays in tune fantastically, didn't cost anything. I am sure when it came out of the box that it was not in tune. I'm not going to turn it around and send it out because it's not in tune, right? I'm sure I probably did have to adjust the little screws here. I'm sure I probably did, I'm positive I did lubricate this nut. I'm sure that I took time and stretched the strings out, and I definitely took time to check and make sure that the intonation was perfect. Now, these aren't things that are super hard to do. They're really easy to do, and you're probably going to have to do it with any guitar that you get. And if you're not doing those things, you're probably not spending the time and putting the attention into your guitar to make sure that it plays and sounds right and stays in tune that you ought to put in it. You need to at least learn how to do these things, and they're simple things to do. It's a matter of turning a screw to make sure that the distance is just right. If I go here and it's too sharp, then I need more space. I need to bring the bridge back this way. If it's too low, then I need to go back this way. If it's too flat, and I need to go back this way with this little part. But those things will make sure that you're in tune when you go to play, and you're not sending back a perfectly beautiful, awesome guitar. But hey, like I say, the used guitars that I buy, 75% of them I know they're there because people think they won't stay in tune, and they stay in tune great, and then I love it. So if you want to keep doing that, go ahead and buy your guitar, take it to the Guitar Center, trade it in because it won't stay in tune, and people like me will just smile and say thank you. Peace to all who watch. Subscribe to the channel if you like.